Hi everyone, welcome. Today we are going to talk about how to mitigate the risk of cybersecurity and cloud downtime. I'm so thrilled to be for sure with my dear friend Lisa Wardlaw, but pleased to welcome two amazing women in our insurance and insurtech sector, Alexis Cierra Vaughn and Ori Cohen. So Alexis is from the wonderful Cowbell, and Ori is from Parametrix. And what we want to talk about today are two of the most important subjects. I think we have had, Lisa, right, a lot of demand around cybersecurity, and we have seen a lot of trends being talked about cyber and cloud outage. As we know, top priorities for 2023. Because we have seen cloud outage arising with AWS and Google and Azure. We have seen hacks happening and with clouds, which are massive. What's your view, Lisa?
Yeah, I was actually also taken back to when we were trying to use Chat GPT, and that was down too, right? So it's an interesting world that we're entering into, which is, you know, I think as humans, we always require performance and immediacy of the things that we count on, use, and consume. And so we're entering this new world where, again, you know, my favorite word is dynamic. Sabine and Alexis and Ori, you probably heard me say it more times than you want already. And you're like, we're just starting the Enquiry. But in a world where we're dynamic or streaming, we start to look at risk in a different way. So I'm super excited to have you both on the show today and really excited to have this conversation, Sabine.
So let's start with some introduction, very important introduction. So let's start with Alexis. Alexis, tell us about you and what you do at Cowbell.
Absolutely. So thank you both so much for having me at the Enquiry. Very excited to be here today. So I am the AVP of Agency Marketing for Cowbell. I oversee all agency engagement efforts with all of our 21,000 appointed agents and brokers across the U.S. And I also support our entire internal sales function as well. A huge part of what I do at Cowbell is all about how to make this very complex topic digestible for every audience, especially insurance agents and brokers at every level of experience in the industry. I myself have been in the industry for 13 years now in insurance, and I started at every single level that everyone is at. Every audience that we service, I've pretty much been in their shoes. So I have kind of an insider's opinion on exactly how they best learn about a new topic and a new product. I've been an independent agent, had my own agency, my own MGA with 26 single moms that I taught the insurance industry business to. And then after that, I went on to work for a Marsh & McLennan company, Mercer, as a broker as well. And now I am overseeing all the agency engagement efforts at Cowbell, which is a standalone cyber insurance provider. And I absolutely love what I do, very passionate about insurance. My only other favorite topic in insurance besides cyber is life insurance. So definitely excited to talk about cybersecurity and the cyber insurance space today.
Thank you so much. Ori?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ori. I'm one of the co-founders and the COO at Parametrix Insurance. And we've basically created a new product in the market that protects businesses from the financial losses due to cloud outages. Coming into the market actually a few years ago, I don't have a background in insurance before Parametrix, but I can tell you that cloud wasn't talked about so much as you just presented this and how much traction and how much interest is cloud gaining. Everyone wants to learn about it, understand it, and that's kind of our forte. How do you understand and manage the risk of the cloud? How do you manage accumulation? How do you maybe help businesses get a better look into their risk management in terms of their cloud or their IT infrastructure? It's definitely a challenge. And the dependency is growing. Cloud consumption, cloud computing, and all the many services, they're just booming. And we'll probably talk about that as well. There was just an outage event a couple of weeks ago of Azure, and we've already paid claims for that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to mitigate the risk, but it's definitely both from customers' point of view and also from the insurers and reinsurers' point of view. There's still a lot to learn and a lot to understand, and it's a risk that changes all the time. Just like with cyber, it's a huge challenge. So really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So Lisa, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to question Alexis. You will question Ori. Does it work for you?
That totally works for me. We'll tag team. Like Wonder Twin powers activate.
I love it.
Let's start with the first challenge, Alexis.
Yes.
So I have a very specific question for you. So when you think about cybersecurity, right, it's constantly evolving. And I was so thrilled to have you on the podcast Scouting for Growth, because I learned a lot. And I was so pleased that I had so many of the measures you talked about already in my business. But, you know, when you look at the cybersecurity threats, such as malware, phishing, hacking, and by the way, there's a new report I've seen today coming out around phishing techniques to avoid it, ransomware, and so on and so forth, causing, you know, organizations to look at how they deal with their operational risk, financial stability, amongst others. What is the most significant cybersecurity risk instances you have seen? Yeah, Cowbell. And how are you enabling your brokers network and small and medium enterprises to mitigate that risk?
Absolutely. So the number one epidemic is what I like to call it, facing the small to medium-sized enterprise market is always going to be ransomware. It's still the number one thing right now. Yes, there are other risks that are out there, but this is still the number one, unfortunately, the one that we're seeing the most. And specifically, you know, the average ransom payment actually increased by 70% from 2021 to 2022, which is a huge thing. And then the recovery cost that's included in that downtime also is included in there. And then you also have the increase in insurance premiums because of that. And then all of the lost data that happens. So it's still the ransomware, literally just looking at some numbers. Basically, for every small to medium-sized business that's been hit by ransomware in the last 5 years, the average recovery cost that includes the average ransom payment, which is anywhere from like $570,000 to about $812,000 just on the ransom. And then you have the average recovery cost just over the last 5 years has been around $1.4 million. So that's a total of about $2.2 million on average, which is the total cost of ransomware for small to medium-sized enterprises just over the last 5 years. That's a huge number, and it can definitely put them out of business. So it, unfortunately, it's still the number one thing. And how we're actually kind of helping them mitigate that risk, number one thing that we saw was education was needed by our policyholders, even by the insurance agents and brokers who even sell this product as well. Education was the number one thing that everyone was saying that they needed. We actually did a survey with our agents and brokers and our policyholders and saw that there was a huge increase in the amount of people who said, I think it was around 86% of our policyholders said that they would actually be looking to have more cyber coverage over the next year and more cybersecurity measures. They were going to spend more money on actually putting cybersecurity measures in place as well. Just because ransomware is still the number one thing, along with so many other risks. And a huge part of that is we're making sure that we're educating them. We're doing things like Cowbell Academy that we just launched in January. So I'm super excited about that. It's a huge deal because it's the It's the first cyber insurance school that is a e-learning platform solely dedicated to cyber insurance. And we're the first standalone cyber insurance provider to actually do that in the market, which is huge because there's a huge need for it with
Great
both the
timing.
brokers.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Right. So I'm really
Just on
excited
that
about
point quickly, Alexis, I know you're not I know you're gonna be super humble here, but we're so excited to see you, Alexis Cierra Vaughn, usher that in. So we are all championing you for creating that and like creating such a great launch for society, but of course as a leader. So what execution. Yes.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have an amazing team who helped me to come up to basically bring this vision that I had to life, which is a big, big deal. I didn't realize how big of a task it was going to be until we got to the execution stage.
Where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yes, yes. But I'm telling you, when we put this thing live, it has been so amazing to see the thousands of agents that have been attending the classes. And these classes are very, very in-depth. Of course, we talk about the Cowbell product in depth, and then we also talk about the cyber insurance industry just in general and the knowledge that you need, because a lot of the issues that we kept seeing was the brokers and the insurance agents just weren't comfortable selling the cyber insurance. So that's why they didn't bring it up as an additional add-on that someone should also be getting when they're quoting their general liability or their commercial policy. So a lot of times they would just say, oh, let's just add it on as an endorsement. Yeah, but that doesn't give you the coverage that you need. That's going to be very limited coverage. And we're creating something that's completely customized and tailored just for that particular type of business in that industry. And I just love that it's already making such a huge impact. With the classes, they have quizzes to go with them. We even offer continuing education credits as well, what agent doesn't want free continuing education credits? Especially on a topic that's relevant to them that they need to know about. So we make our classes, and the curriculum is made for different learning levels. So we have a little bit for everybody.
And so your main target is the broker network, right? You are serving the broker so that they can serve their customer better.
Exactly. And our policyholders, we're going to roll that out later in the year as well. So there'll be a policyholder side of Cowbell Academy, which I'm super excited about. So
I didn't share with you as well, actually, Alexis, is when I go and do my shopping, I'm listening to the Cowbell Factor.
Yes. I love it.
Of your episode recently.
Yes, we actually just dropped the new season today. So it's available today. I'm actually talking about cat modeling in cyber insurance with our lead actuary, Dan Pillardi. It is a great conversation. I always like when I get to talk to actuaries anyway, because you can learn so much from an actuary.
What's that we call it? Actuary speak, Alexis. We've all mastered the language of actuary speak, right? I see Ori smiling.
So for me, it would be my Saturday morning listen as I go and get my hot chocolate and croissant from my local corner shop. Lisa?
Yes. So thank you, Alexis. And first of all, Sabine, only you can say croissant. That makes me want to be immediately in Paris. So thank you for your Emily in Paris post recently, because I want to go with you and be your friend getting a croissant and au chocolat. Or would we say pain au chocolat? Would that be better?
Pain au chocolat et croissant.
Okay. So, and Ori and Alexis, you can both join us if you'd like to.
But my water in the meantime.
I've got my tea, which is kind of blurred by my virtual background. But, what's really interesting, so if we kind of move in, Ori, on this, cloud downtime and Parametrix, and I think the overriding theme here is cyber and Parametric are both kind of reacting to this on-demand, continually shifting environment, right? So we could take natural catastrophe with our world events, we could take cyber, and of course, now let's go into cloud downtime. I mean, the challenge is, and I'm going to age myself just a little bit here. For those of you listening, you can laugh at me. But I was actually in Paris, Sabine, Ori, and Alexis, when the BlackBerry Exchange server went down. Gosh, it would have probably been like 2015, 2016. I was in Paris and I was up late at night working, as I typically do. And I'm like, wait, my messages aren't going through. And so I'm like calling IT help. No, Ori, this is a world prior to Parametrix, prior to cloud downtime, right? And I'm frantically calling IT help desk, like, what's going on? And that was the largest, I remember at the time, BlackBerry Exchange server outage that the world had ever seen. And that was crippling back in a day and age where we were not doing cloud computing, right? Like this was like well before putting things in the cloud. And clearly, I mean, I was also a champion of let's move everything to the cloud. Let's get all of our data to the cloud. Let's get, our buddies, at Google Cloud, Nigel, and I'm a huge champion of let's go SaaS, let's go to the cloud. But Ori, what are the implications on the business, and how is Parametrix kind of enabling and advocating against these downtimes and disruptions that you're seeing when something like a cloud outage occurs?
Well, first of all, it is a massive effect when outages go down. It could be to many reasons, not just the cloud, just like the example you gave. And I think what's funny, and not necessarily funny, but in terms of like media and PR, when something happens and something just hits the news, doesn't really matter how big the impact was, but if it hits consumers, then everyone hears about it, and it's like much more out there. It's like my Amazon, my Alexa didn't work, so now everyone knows about it. That's not necessarily a really important business interruption event, obviously, like the ones that we tackle and insure. But it is something that's especially even after the pandemic, we were just talking about it earlier, how the awareness for the reliability and the dependency of businesses and in general, us as individuals, but also businesses on cloud computing and cloud services is just tremendous. And when you really dig into that, it is a catastrophic event for a business that businesses do not actually have a way to really influence this risk once an event happens with the cloud, because they're depending on it. So if you take a look at the risk landscape, it really has changed from being a risk that businesses can influence immediately. So when something happens, they bring in their IT, like all their infrastructure is on-prem. With the cloud, you can do a lot of things ahead of time. You can mitigate those risks in different ways. But when the event happens, you really are waiting for the cloud to get back up and running. Some companies are 100% dependent on the cloud. Some have, part of their production really depending on the type of product that the business is creating. It really depends. And so from the risk perspective, I think that's interesting, and it is continuously transforming. So the risk is changing. The availability of the cloud is not just one entity. So you can't just decide, I want to, insure clients that rely on AWS, compare that to Google, compare that to Microsoft Azure. At Parametrix, we really dig deep into the exact regions and services that clients use and what is most critical for their business to continue to run. What's the difference if storage would go down, if compute would go down, if machine learning would go down? And that is the level of risk management and modeling and pricing that we get into at Parametrix in order to really ensure this risk, because these are events where there's a lot of gray areas involved, and it's really hard to model. You need historical data. It's lacking historical data of outages. Waiting periods and policies are usually high. So we're talking about at least an 8, 10, 12, 16, or even 24 hours. So, there's lack of understanding of what does that mean to ensure the cloud? How do I even do that? So that's exactly what we do. We developed a system that tracks the availability and the performance of the biggest cloud providers and also other cloud-based services, because there is dependencies even between them. And it's really important to kind of map out the entire service provider, global giant infrastructures in order to really ensure these types of risks. And that's kind of how we based our product. That's kind of the level and detail that we did in order to ensure a company that for them, it's a really simple, nice policy, but the infrastructure of everything that we've built is very technical and very robust in order to really get to the point where we are today.
Which kind of brings me to my quick follow on, which, Alexis was talking about two kind of key points that kind of dovetail into what you're talking about. One is, education and keeping it simple. So how do you take this, by definition, the things that we're talking about, the risk vectors are not only complicated, but they're constantly moving. They don't sit static, which our industry is great at risk, but we've been great at static risk. So everything that you ladies are talking about is prospective or dynamic risk, where the vectors are constantly shifting. If you imagine that for a small business owner, right, or a small, medium-sized entity, the complexity of that just went up exponentially. So my question for you, Ori, is, are you seeing the simplicity, education, and then are you seeing it also to a target market of small SMB entities, where they're like, okay, now I know I need to cover this compute power? Because large scale commercial enterprises, of course, I'm taking back to my procurement days when we first started going to the cloud, downtimes, outages, how I prioritize my system, how my insurance coverage was going to work. Let us understand a little bit about, I'll call it the personas, and how similar or dissimilar you're seeing to kind of what Alexis described.
Yeah, so I have a lot to say. I will say that, first of all, simplicity is I think key with such a technological product that the buyer is not necessarily very technological. You want to keep it simple for them, especially also, we sell our products through brokers as well. So it needs to be as simple as possible for them to understand, to use, to promote, to sell, and go on and so on and so forth. A lot of the expectations also from us as a market is to have simplified processes, efficiency, things like that. In order for us to really ensure this product, what we've done is taken the parametric insurance model, which is a really simple model to understand. It's an if, then, this, that type of model. You just really need the right technology in order to enable, yourself to use this model. And for those that are less aware of it, it's a model where if the insured event is objective to the different players in the market, the insurer and the insured, then you can apply it and basically save the claims process when you pre-agree on the terms ahead of time, because you don't really need to investigate what happened. If there's a source of truth monitoring system that tells you, we know that an event happened in this and this, that region, and this cloud provider, and we assess ahead of time what is the financial losses for a business. So kind of taking this model, which is very simple, implementing into a difficult situation, is how we have tackled that. We've actually seen insurers and reinsurers shy away from this risk lately, especially with the larger enterprises. So what we call, contingent business interruption, dependent business interruption within the cyber policies. And so that's kind of where we come in, and we are helpful to fill that gap, actually, even with the large enterprises. In our portfolio, we have businesses that are really small, so SMBs, but actually we are talking to date and really closing some really large deals of about $1 million per hour of downtime, even more, up to $3 million per hour of downtime. So really large enterprises, pre-IPO'd, IPO'd, where, to be honest, they are more mature about understanding their risk and what are the implications of downtime. They have bigger teams, usually a risk manager, heads of insurances, that really are able to have a better understanding and maturity about their operational risks when they rely on the cloud. So it's actually interesting, even in financial reports of most of the public companies that rely on the cloud, you could see that black and white, they actually list that there, which I think is the most interesting. These companies are spending millions of dollars on the cloud every single year. And those that, from the first hour, when they experience downtime, it really hurts them and affects them and their customers as well. That's a chaotic event. So, yeah.
I love that as I mean, on the NatCat side, we talk a lot about Parametric as right. You've got I'll call it your traditional indemnity, and then you can slice that between insurance and reinsurance. And then you've got what I call is a parametric solution helping on that coverage gap layer. And then of course you've got your ILS structures coming in as well. So it's really, how do we put that entire schema together? And to your point, the elasticity of the solution to be able to go down to a very maybe a less sophisticated, higher volume market consumer, all the way into sliding scale over into that coverage gap analysis that says, listen, we've got to have something beside just a traditional indemnity in terms of, gosh, like just like affordability and kind of like great, I've got downtime, but if I have to wait X number of days for a check or recovery. So what would you say the market kind of size and impact of cloud downtime is in your opinion right now?
So I'll tell you that, first of all, we're very involved in and started to think about how we're sharing this information to the world, whether it's the data that we're gathering, the insights that we're gathering. And we're going to release 2 really interesting reports or white papers. One about the ILS and how we see structuring in order to really release some of the cyber capacity, and also really help insurer and reinsurers map and analyze their existing aggregation because of these issues, these really long issues that could create chaos. Sorry for taking these into a different direction, but
no. I think, Sabine, this might be another BAM moment, because I've been after this. Like, basically, if you follow my LinkedIn comment, hey, I'm so excited for your report that's upcoming.
Wow, I'm so excited.
I love seeing when people connect the dots, right? Like, it's hard to connect the dots sometimes in this industry. So
Yes. I will send it over to you. I think you'll find it really insightful. And then also another one where we go into that. We have different ways that we call it, but we call it kind of risk units or event units of, like, you have an outage event. It's not just taking a look at the event from like, and it was 8 hours and this, regions or provider. It's actually split into many like units or event units, where each one of these units has its own like analysis and impact. And that's what you need to take a look at in order to really, define what is an outage event and what you're going to be paying claims for. If at all, that's super critical. In terms of the market size, there's a lot of ways to look at it, because on one hand, the one, like for IT downtime in general, I think that's been estimated like $700 billion, which is an enormous number, right? You could also, though, look at like cloud spendings, and like, that's a very valid, how much is the cloud growing year by year? I think that's over like $550 billion, I think, for 2022. And that's estimated to like, I think, double in the next like 5 years, which is insane. And so that's another way to kind of look at it. The cloud providers have grown year over year, like 20 to 40%. And it's just one of the fastest growing industries, I think. I think in general, cloud is much more stable than doing things on-prem. So it is a scalable solution. It's more efficient. It allows companies to focus on their core product, which is amazing. It's such an amazing solution. And you just, it creates gaps in the market, creates some misconceptions in the market. But it is a huge growing market. That's for sure. It's not going away.
Yeah. So while going back to Alexis, one thing I remember, Ori, when we talked in the past, is the ability to look at the risk differently and looking at the consumer of the risk. Let's say the small and medium-sized enterprises, which is relying into their revenue in specific time of the year, and being able to design the policy to fulfill those needs, like Valentine's Day coming up in 5 days.
Yes. Reminder.
Ben probably is listening.
For whomever is listening, it might not be her husband, but reminder. There needs to be a chat GPT automatic for that one.
It's important to go back into that flexible and dynamic underwriting and being able to fulfill different businesses' needs.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the digital world has allowed us to have a lot more, options, right? And so businesses can be available or have that fluctuation between different seasons and different specific events that they might want to insure, or specific hours that they might want to insure. So we tailor our policies to that, because, if you're not, if it's like If a downtime event happens out of working hours, it may not be relevant for your business. On the other hand, if you're a global company, it may be, or you could have different territories that you'd want different payouts for, or as you said, like specific events or specific days of the year that could contribute most of your revenue for your company. So I think that's also kind of that. I think that's what's expected from clients today, like for policies to be able to tailor and to get into that detail.
Yeah. Alexis, one of the questions I'm sure people are waiting for us to ask you is, the cybersecurity risk is increasing, like cloud outage risk. And so what things people can do, right? We have, I know, the Cowbell factors where we can learn a lot of things and the academy, but give us some tips. A lot of people right now are probably wondering, what can I do right now to protect myself?
Exactly. Absolutely. So I'll kind of do a two-part to that. One of the things that we do specifically at Cowbell with our policyholders is we have an amazing risk engineering team who sits down with every single policyholder. And that's regardless if they have a security team or not. And they're able to give them insight on, hey, we've used the Cowbell factors to kind of figure out, okay, what different risks do you have out here and how do we mitigate those? So we start with that we do that with the masses. And we kind of do that with every single policyholder, which I feel is a huge, huge value add for all of our policyholders. And it's a way for them to be educated and to also get in a position to have a better cyber risk profile. Then my tips, of course, the number one thing is going to be multi-factor authentication. You can start there. That is the easiest and fastest way. And 90% of the MFA providers out here are free. And, you can, they're attached to most of the email exchange service that we use anyway, whether it's Google Suite, Microsoft, they're all offering it. So, I know it's an extra 5 minutes of logging in and maybe having to scan your finger or scan your face, but I'm telling you, it is way better to spend an extra 5 minutes than have to spend 5 million because now you're a victim of a cyber attack. So just kind of look at how the pros and the cons of it. MFA first. Then the next thing is a VPN. I know that we all want to be connected to all of these different public Wi-Fis that we're in the airport, we're in our hotels, we're at conferences. We are everywhere. We are at Starbucks and we're just connecting to public Wi-Fi like it's nothing. So use that VPN. You need to have that VPN because that's going to make sure that you have an encrypted and secure way to be able to surf the web and also not expose all of your data to a cyber criminal out there who may be actually sitting right next to you in Starbucks waiting for you to connect to that public Wi-Fi so they can steal all of your information. The other thing is system backups and making sure that you do all of those updates and patches that are sent out by every single provider that you have on your laptops and your computers. So make sure you're doing those installing those updates, and also make sure that you're backing up your data. If you back up your data and keep it in an off-site facility, don't back it up and leave it on the same network, because that's going to be pointless. This will actually help you to not have to pay the ransom if you're backing up your data on a regular basis.
Oh, no, wait, Alexis. I actually worked at a company, and I won't mention whom, where we had to go get, not because of a cyber attack, but because of a data, whatever, it doesn't matter. We had to go get backup tapes. The technology team was overriding the current day backup with the prior day's backup tapes. So we could not restore our data because they were, it's like the person that records over the old VHS tape back in the day of their wedding. Yeah, that was kind of me.
Oh, no.
So not only keep it off site, but just, in case.
Correct.
Don't write over something that's still relevant to be pulled from backup storage. I just had to add that one.
Absolutely. That's a good point to add there, because you never know who you've hired. They just might want to take the easy way out and just overwrite everything. So you want to make sure you have those system backups. If you back up that data, that gives you way more leverage if you are to fall victim to a ransom attack. And then the other thing is going to be get a standalone cyber insurance policy. That way it's actually customized and tailored to suit your needs. Of course, I'm going to tell you to get it with Cowbell. I mean, come on. I literally have my bell and everything. So
Can you ring that for every policy, Alexis, for everyone?
Okay, look, I do it on the podcast at least. That's a lot of policies
I know.
to have to
I'm
keep
waiting.
ringing that bell for. But I'm telling you, getting that standalone cyber insurance policy is exactly where you can definitely kind of help to mitigate those risks and protect yourself, and also make sure that if you do fall victim to any type of cyber attack, that you're able to bounce back because you have coverage for that particular any type of risk that is out there. You have that coverage that you need to be able to better protect your business and to not have to go out of business because you actually have to do something that's related to a cyber attack, like pay a ransom or do forensic investigating, any of that stuff. I mean, there is so much cost. I just told you about the cost earlier. That's just from ransomware. $2.2 million is just from ransomware. And there are other cyber crimes out there. That's just the number one. And that's the one that everybody's talking about. That's the one you hear about in the news most often. But it's really important to make sure that you are definitely trying to find ways to mitigate your risk so that you can have a better cyber risk profile and protecting yourself. I like to call it cybersecurity plus cyber insurance is cyber resilience.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have both is really, really important. You can't have one without the other, which is super important.
Yeah. And that is about resiliency. And I would, Lisa, I would ask the same question to Ori. What are the tips you actually give to your customers and your workers to, help others to plan for outages?
Yeah, I would definitely, first of all, echo what Alexis was saying about having a technological solution and then the insurance policy to kind of support one another to create that resilience. That's absolutely what we also kind of really try to educate the market on. And but we do have a dilemma though, because it doesn't take 5 minutes to do a redundancy, for example, in the cloud. And I'll just go into that for a second. So we do try to educate clients on their IT infrastructure and how to, mitigate the risk of downtime. At the end of the day, no one just wants to be down, right? Doesn't matter what the reason is, same as like with the cyber incident or any insurance or insured event, right? So if you're relying on one data center, first of all, when you purchase or you want to go into it, one data center or migrate from one provider to another, there lacks the knowledge, in general on which data center is more stable than the other. So when you take into consideration, like, why should I use AWS in this region or that region? The stability of the regions are today not taken into consideration because of this lack of information out there. So this is one of the reasons we're also issuing, this report that I was talking about earlier to really try and help. And we call it like the stability index, like take that into consideration when you're using the cloud. Then another way is to use two different data centers so that if one goes down, then the other one kind of picks up. And there are different types of redundancy plans. Some that is called like active, that in a few seconds you already migrate to the second data center. But there are others as well, and that takes a few hours. The thing is, though, that it's really, really expensive. It can basically double your cloud spendings, which is a difficult solution. So you need to find the right solution for your company in terms of budgets. And then definitely an insurance policy is one that can really come in. The question is, which type of insurance policy? So what we really urge businesses to really understand what they have currently and whether it's their cyber insurance policies, or others. If they don't, then of course get a cyber insurance policy, but see what is the waiting periods, what is the exposure that you have. Do you as a company have SLA liabilities that if you breach them you will have to pay your clients? Do you have clients that if they are hurt, will they request anything? If you're in a very competitive market, for example, like, I don't know, food delivery or scooters or things like that, marketplaces, maybe you want to compensate clients if you have like an outage, even a really short one, because customer churn is like the most expensive thing for a business, right? Getting your customers back. So take that into consideration. Just make sure that the policies that you have aligns with whatever financial losses you're going to have if you incur an outage. Obviously, we help our clients throughout this process, because it's kind of a new, we have this awareness challenge both with the brokers and with the clients. So we try and really help out. We have representatives that are taking, hand by hand, any client or any broker that really wants to understand and get more educated on the subject in order to make that happen. So it's kind of a mix of things.
So my favorite thing, Sabine, that I've heard, I don't know about you, but from both Alexis and Ori, thank goodness, we're no longer in a one-size-fits-all insurance world. So not only have we moved past static, thank you, ladies, but we've moved into really curated. And I hesitate to even use the word personalized, because I think so many people have taken personalization as like a regression to the mean. And what I heard both of you say, whether it's cyber, whether it's cloud downtime, the derivation of your coverage and your selection of your risk and your hygiene of like, how are you performing as a business is very specific. Correct. It's specific to everything about you as a business and your model. And I love seeing you both represent that, because I feel like we're finally in an era of not only dynamic, but truly hyper curated and personalized solutioning. And Sabine, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, and I had created a little thing for insight moments, and absolutely, Lisa, I heard about near real time, right? We can actually be protected near real time nowadays. It's about tailoring and personalizing based on different customer segments, right? We talk about small businesses. We talked as well about enterprises, which, need to be protected at some point and need to make better choices as well for their own customers. And also, I can actually start seeing also that as we use more and more technology and more risk are coming to market, emerging risk, systemic risk are coming to market, we have now options with, solutions like Cowbell and like Parametrix, amongst others, right, which are really targeted those new problems. And I know insurers are looking at those new problems as well to make sure that everybody can be protected within our digital age. I would say, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. Will we see you at the end of March, at the end of February, beginning of March at InsurTech Insight 2023? Will people be able to talk to you or people representing your organizations?
Yes, we'll be there. I could say for myself and the team. I'll be there on the 1st, but we're in London the whole week. So if anyone wants to reach out, or absolutely love to take any calls or questions or coffee.
I actually won't be there, unfortunately, but we will have some people from our team who will be attending as well. So definitely look out for some cowbellers, as I call them.
And I look forward to continuing talking with you and seeing you soon.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.